Hey, Ron.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Radical Roots podcast, where we dig deep to reach high, and of course, always progress through action. My name is Ron Baxter. I'm the co-host of the Radical Roots.
And I am Ram Sandoval, the co host of Radical Roots. Welcome, everyone.
Sorry about that kind of staggered intro. I didn't know we were live. Usually, it's a little bit of a countdown. He just said spend 3 seconds, and he said go. So hey, I'm here. But hey, what's up, Ron? How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Before we jump in, I want to make sure if you're listening, please like, subscribe, share with five of your friends. Um,
Six,
Seven.
maybe even eight.
All right. But yeah, I had it's a busy week at work. Um, we're going to start tonight with our guest, North Carolina House Representative Jordan Lopez.
The man, the
Um,
myth, the legend.
yeah, so we'll spend about 30 minutes with him. And then after that, we're going to go into some hot topics. We're going to some action items, things that you, the people, can be doing today to help fight for democracy. Let's bring democracy back. And
Let's
excited
make
to
it
talk about
sexy.
those things. Yep. So without further ado, I will go
All
ahead
right.
and bring in Representative Jordan Lopez. Uh,
Lopez. There he is. There he is. What's up, man? Oh, you're on mute. See, after
5 years in, five
all
years
this
post
COVID
pandemic, man.
time, come on, man.
Still
Come
doing that.
on. Still doing it on mute. What's up, man? How you doing, Rep Lopez?
I am doing great. How about y'all?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Thank you so much for taking some time to come to the Radical Roots podcast.
Of course, thanks for
yes.
having me on.
Thank you. I know you two have known each other for a while, and I met
Actually, no,
you.
Nah, that's
I've
Oh,
never
you
met
never
him.
met.
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
But
no.
you know of.
I mean, who could not know of him? I mean, that's like it's ridiculous. Yeah, come on now.
I did. So I
nah,
did.
I'm
I'm nobody.
I'm the peon.
I did. Like I
I am the
said.
least important person that you probably had on this podcast so far. Please.
um,
Untrue. Untrue.
I
Elected
did.
official.
I did move here last year, and I ran into Jordan at least two or three times since I've been here. So I think the first time we met was there was a North Carolina for Harris event that was
Yep.
centered around Black folks in Charlotte,
Nice.
which was a nice little meet and greet. It was at a bar, I guess. I don't know what area we were in, Uptown or I don't know what you call
Yeah, I think it was uptown area.
that.
Yeah,
um,
Uptown, not
he's
downtown.
super
Uptown.
new. He's super new.
but yeah, so we met there, and then I think I saw you at the election party for Woodson Bradley post,
Mhm.
after she won. So yeah, we had a couple times to meet, and Payron's like, "Hey, I talked to Jordan Lopez. He wants to come on." I said, "Great." So and I know we talked a little bit. So happy to have you here. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
I think you said you were sworn in January 8th, and you started January 1st. So, but yeah, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and how you got here?
Yeah, I'd love to. And again, just thank you both for having me on. I Jordan Lopez, newly elected to the North Carolina State House. I represent House District 112, which is in the East Charlotte area in Mecklenburg County. For better or worse, we get called the great state of Mecklenburg in the legislature, and I'll let y'all decide whether that's for better or worse. I was born and raised in the very community that I get to represent, so I think it's
Mm,
it's like a double honor, not only to be able to have been from this community, to know so much about it, so much of its history, so many of the folks here and around it, but to now serve it in our state legislature. It's a pretty unique experience. I mean, it's unique to one be a native of Charlotte nowadays, but then to now be a
true.
native and serve in office is equally as cool and special, really. I am our youngest Democratic member of the state house at 26 years old. I'll be 27 in April, so you know,
Ah,
getting a little bit older. I've got a few gray hairs that have started to come in since getting sworn in, so I can feel the age creeping up on me. But
you're a
excited
baby,
to take
man.
on the excited to take on the role and bring a new perspective to the building. That's I think the entire that's what is needed the most right now in our politics is just a new perspective, a lot of new perspectives on what we are doing or what needs to be happening in the halls of power at whatever level of government. And so I went to high school here in Charlotte. At one point, I wanted to be an engineer. I thought I was going to design airplanes
Mm,
until the math had more letters in it than numbers, and I kind of checked out. and decided that well, simultaneously got super interested in politics and government.
Mm,
Everybody always asks, when did I get involved? Honestly, it was about 2012 during President Obama's reelection campaign. My
mm,
mom voluntold me that we were going to do some voter registration on the court. I don't know if it was called the coordinated campaign at the time. I don't know if that's a relatively new term or not, but
right.
for that particular campaign, we were
Yeah.
doing voter registration in the East Charlotte area. And at the end of the summer, the DNC was in Charlotte that year. We
Mm-hmm.
got to go see him speak. We were in unfortunately, an overflow room at the convention center, but nonetheless, in a room full of folks who were just all inspired at the first Black president, being, a few 100 feet away, giving a speech to a crowd. Something about it kind of woke something up in me. I wanted to
Wow.
get deeper involved, or more involved into my community, learn more about how government works, the power that it has to change people's lives on a small scale, but also to a very large scale. And decided to go and pursue a degree in political science. Went to UNC Greensboro.
Whoop,
Payron, I know
whoop.
you're an alum as well. Yeah, and graduated in 2019. While I was there, did just a boatload of stuff, sometimes too much. Was on student government for 3 of the 4 years that I was there. I was the president of our college Democrat chapter for a semester. I was an RA at one point. I worked on a campaign. I interned in Congresswoman Adams' office, who is our extraordinary congresswoman here in the Charlotte area.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm probably missing. I interned at Habitat for Humanity, and there's probably a few
Wow.
other things that I'm missing off the list. But hyper involved, sometimes to my own detriment. But first, I got my first job after I graduated was at the legislature. I had the privilege of working for State Senator Mujtaba Muhammad. He is he's in his fourth term, an incredible public servant. I always tell people, if there was a perfect example of who you should work for if you're interested in getting into public service, it was him. Just his heart for the work really inspired me to stay in it. While I was in his office, went to North Carolina Central University to pursue a master's degree, excuse me, in public administration with a concentration in urban management. I thought at one point I was going to be a city manager, or at least, could try to be a city manager, and who knows, it could still happen one day.
Yeah.
But graduated or finished that degree in 2022. And by the time I finished that, I had jumped over to a program in the Cooper administration named Hometown Strong. It was a rural focused initiative that allowed me to not only see so many different communities across our state, and I got to get out of my Charlotte bubble, but also got to work on some cool projects supporting rural communities that were looking for grant funding, for example, to address infrastructure issues or recreational issues like a park or a playground. Economic development issues post pandemic were a huge concern or a focus area for our team, and did that for about 3 years until I jumped into the world of politics and decided to run for office. And so that roughly sums up how I maneuvered and have gotten here. I'll completely skip some stuff in Charlotte. Hyper involved in Charlotte as well. I sit on the board of directors for a nonprofit named Charlotte East.
Mm,
We serve the footprint of, as our name suggests, the East Charlotte area.
yep.
And really strive to be an advocacy organization that can collaborate and coordinate with a lot of the neighborhood associations we have here, promote economic development, but then also just a sense of community and pride here in the East Charlotte area. We often feel left behind. Just historically, it has been an underserved community in Charlotte, and
Yeah.
we're working to change that and become a prominent voice for our community members. The Black Political Caucus is a huge institution here in the Mecklenburg County area. I had the privilege of serving as the chair of their Get Out the Vote committee for a year during the 2023 municipal elections. And got to learn a lot more about just different parts of the city and the different issues across our city, and how, I mean, they're different, but at times generally the same, just different resources to address them and different levels of prioritization for city and local leaders. And it was a really rewarding experience to work with so many community leaders and stakeholders and elected officials to learn more about their platforms and how they plan to serve the city. Um, and a number of other things, but I feel like I've been kind of talking to y'all for a minute, so
You
I'm
got
gonna leave it at that. It's been a long journey.
you got a long resume, especially how young you are, and I think
Yeah. That's awesome,
I
man.
think a lot
Thank you.
your people would call you like a politician today, but you're not a politician. You are a, I don't know what you actually, what would you call yourself? Because to me, it's you're a community organizer. You're in the community. You're trying to give back to the community. I
Yeah.
think it's a thankless, in a lot of ways, a thankless job. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It
Appreciate
doesn't
it.
get. I don't think people who are out there like you get the credit that they deserve. You're really working for the people and trying to not only like do things for the people, but listen, right? and understand what they're going through. For you to go be to Charlotte and say, I'm going to do this, the rural project, and step outside the, Charlotte bubble. I think that's great. Like, I think, again, thank you. So what would you describe yourself as, though? I wouldn't say you're a politician, right? So.
Well, I think generally I have to accept that I am indeed at this point a politician.
Right.
I don't say that in a pejorative way either. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just the nature of the game. But I also do consider myself a community organizer or a community leader, because at the end, I don't think much could happen without the community level of support and engagement, without being connected to your neighbors, knowing what they're going through, knowing that you can go to them if you need something, or being welcoming enough for them to come to you if they need something. Really just caring about. I mentioned our nonprofits. Like, one of our main goals is that sense of community, and for me, that's important. Um, at every phase of my life, whether it was here in Charlotte, whether it was, specified to my high school community, or in Greensboro at my college community, or in Raleigh, the small community that I was able to build while I lived there for a few years before moving back to Charlotte. Like, that's kind of what keeps me going at the end of the day, is that sense of belonging and that sense of being able to just help folks whenever they need it, and to also be able to lean on others whenever I need it. And so I do like to lean into the community leader, community advocate role. I think that's how I
There
would
you go.
describe myself.
Okay. Very cool.
He's a politician who advocates for his community.
There you go. I
You got
need to write that down, actually. Yeah.
So now that you are in the House, what are some of your policy priorities, or issues that you're passionate about, and are they the same thing?
So passionate about a variety of issues, like actually all of them. But what you learn very quickly is that bandwidth only goes so far. As a young person, and I think as a new member, all of our new members, I'm our freshman caucus's chair, or co-chair, excuse me. And I think each of us came into this with a very, we want to save the world, knowing that we can't do it all because of our position in the minority party, but knowing that we want to try doing this, we want to try doing that. I want to find a member of the majority that wants to work with me on this. And then you start getting into the legislative drafting process, and it's a ton of research. It involves, or at least it should, if you're doing it right, involve meeting with a lot of stakeholders and community members that would be directed by your legislation. And the time in a day, all of a sudden, is no longer enough. And so I went in with a very wide ranging agenda. Wanted to attack infrastructure issues, economic development, protecting our democracy, family and child health, and a variety of others. And while those are still extremely important to me, and while if you go to my webpage on the legislature, you'll see I've signed on to several bills that do a wide variety of things. I find myself working nowadays on affordable housing, or just housing issues, more behind the scenes on that, but trying to find ways at a state level to help increase our supply of affordable housing. You will hear that concern come up when you talk to anybody anywhere across the state, Charlotte, Cleveland County,
That's right.
Pittsburgh, like wherever you go, you're going to hear people talking about the cost of housing. And so it's a supply issue. And I think we have to start as a state, and then our local governments as well, figuring out ways to increase the supply of housing. And so looking at ways to do that at the state level. I'm going to get really wonky here, like nerdy for a second, but
wonk it up, man.
capital
Wonk
funding.
it up.
There is a program from the lottery, the North Carolina Lottery Fund, or the Education Lottery, excuse me. It funds some capital projects at different schools across the state. Counties like Mecklenburg or Wake are currently excluded from receiving funding from that program, just because we're considered a high wealth county, and looking for ways to try to expand the eligibility of schools in counties like ours for communities like East Charlotte that may be in a high wealth county, but are certainly not high wealth communities. So looking at ways to tweak that program a bit, to make it a bit more targeted at where the money needs to go, not excluding the rural communities that currently get the funding, because they certainly do need it as well. But we need some help here in East Charlotte too. Food insecurity is a huge thing that when I put my platform out, I wish I would have included initially, because over the course of the campaign, that was something that came up a lot, and it has always been prevalent in the community, but I think COVID really exacerbated it, and it has continued to be a thing. So working with some of my colleagues to find ways to bring forward our ideas on how we could address food security, whether it be just better education about how our food economy, or agribusiness, I guess would be a better word to put it, works here at a state level, whether it be addressing food waste, or community gardens, urban farms, for example, just to make produce and fresh food more accessible at a local level. Like we're talking about a variety of things, and hopefully we'll be able to get a draft together soon that can show people what we would like to see as a body. Transit plan, North Carolina, Charlotte, excuse me, is currently in the midst of just a record amount of growth. We see 100 and something odd people move to the Mecklenburg County area every day. And if you drive around Charlotte, you feel it. You used to be able to get from, say, my house here in East Charlotte to the university area in about 15 minutes. Unless it's 10 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning, you're just not doing that anymore. It takes 20, 25. And if you're in the middle of rush hour, it's taking you 30, 45 minutes to get anywhere in the city. It's just gotten so congested. And not only is that an inconvenience for people, but it's also a health challenge, or it could be a health issue, an environmental issue. And so we have a transit plan that we are currently working on in the state legislature, because in order to fund it, we need to raise sales taxes. In order to raise our sales tax, we need approval from voters. But in order for voters to get the opportunity to approve it, the county commission needs approval from the legislature to put that on the ballot. So it's kind of a very convoluted process to let residents decide what's best for our community. But that is something that we're currently working on in the legislature. And there was a bill filed this week that kicks that process off, and we hope to see that move. It's a long process though, so that's a to be seen thing.
Yeah. So you now that you're in the House and you said you're looking for people in the majority to partner with, like how has that experience been? I mean, my perception of politics in North Carolina, especially within the Assembly, is that it's polarized, and no one there's like in actually all over, not just in North Carolina, but no one really seems to want to work across the aisle. No one seems to want to make compromise. Where are you? Can you tell me a little bit about that experience? Because there are things in common. I feel like they should be able to find some sort of.
And I mean, and to be clear, about that, I will say Democrats usually do want to work across the aisle. I think we got to be very clear about who usually does not want to work the other way when they have power. Because we don't want to smear the shit around where it's like, oh, it's only like everybody's doing it. Now, there's one side that actively chooses to not work with their colleagues. So I think to really sharpen that question, what is your experience been like trying to get bipartisanship, or I think what's really more important is common ground with the Republican Party?
It starts with building relationships, and as a new member, I just don't have them yet. So it's been spending a lot of time trying to figure out what members of the Republican majority focus on what are their interests, what do they care about. Looking through bills that they may have filed in the past to determine, okay, this representative seems like they're really knowledgeable about this subject matter area. This bill that they propose is actually not a bad bill. Let me reach out and just let them know I'm interested in working with them on this area, or that at least I support this bill or this idea or initiative from the past, or that they filed this session. I've stopped by a couple of offices, excuse me, at the legislature for Republican members who filed bills that I thought were very good, and said, hey, I like this bill a lot. Is there anything that I can do to help? Are you interested in support from a Democrat like myself? I mean, this would benefit people in my community too. And you often will hear a very gracious thank you. Would love your support. Would love to have you sign on as a co-sponsor. And just to break down a definition, a primary sponsor and a co-sponsor are two different things. You may hear that, or if I step up and say that, a primary sponsor.
Define it, please. Thank you. Yes.
A primary sponsor is, you have a first primary sponsor, and that person is usually the drafter of the bill. It's their idea. They may have shepherded it from a thought at a meeting at town hall, to meetings with stakeholders, to bill drafting, to getting it filed. The first primary that bill is usually their baby. Then you can have up to three additional primary sponsors, and those are folks who may work on it with you, add language to that draft, or remove language, or help you tweak it, maybe bring in some additional support from other groups. And you can have up to three additional primary sponsors, so 4 primary sponsors total. A co-sponsor is kind of like a retweet. It's like, hey, I agree with what you said here. I want to put my name on this to let people know that I agree with this bill. It's kind of a signal of support. So that way, whether it be leadership or just your constituents looking at the bills that you've signed on to, can say, oh, okay, he obviously thought this prostate cancer fund and study bill was a good thing, because we know how many men, especially Black men, that this affects. So he put his name on that as kind of a cosign to say I agree with this. Um, okay, so going back to working with Republicans, I mean, you usually will hear that co-sponsor piece, because it can be difficult to, as a Democrat, put your name on a bill with Republicans and then have leadership let that bill move. Most people don't realize, or I mean, it might sound intuitive, but most people don't realize if you're in the minority, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
The majority party runs everything in that building, from what bills get heard, what committees you sit on, where your office is, what desk you sit on at the floor, whether you park, have the ability to park at the complex, or if you're parking down the street. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of power in being in the majority, and so it does come down to what leadership will or will not allow you to work on, and you just got to be really practical, pragmatic, but most importantly, relatable, and building those relationships with folks.
Is the supermajority still exists in the House, or is it in the Senate?
No, we were
Yeah.
thankfully able to break the supermajority, but it does still exist in the Senate.
Okay, so and for the total House for the NC Assembly, that also broke the supermajority because of the House. Okay, understood.
Yep.
Got it.
So now we thankfully can uphold a veto if Governor Stein should ever need to use one. But the thought process is that breaking the supermajority should bring Republicans, or should at least make it
Moderate
more
them.
likely for them to want to bring us to the table and hear our ideas. But we only broke it by one seat.
One.
So
yeah, there's a
Right,
couple
that's
Democrats
right.
I heard that are kind of wishy-washy. So it's not
yeah,
it's not a
there's
given.
some
Yeah.
wild
What,
cards, but I
what,
mean, we're feeling good this year about
Good.
keeping everybody together. I think that's the name of the game, is just making sure that we are really united in this work, hearing all of our members and making sure they all feel supported, because we don't want to lose those members when it matters most. So,
I just want to piggyback off that kind of that thought process there. That like I remember when I first moved to North Carolina was when the HB2 bill got passed, right? The bathroom bill with by our Union County's own Dan Bishop, But as you were saying about like trying to ingratiate yourself with the Republican Party for trying to get at least some level of bipartisanship, or to seek a level of relationship, I guess what's the weight of that relationship when things like a really extreme bill come out, when like you guys have the good relationship when you're just trying to kind of meet common cause, but then like in 6 months, I mean, you may not know that because you just got sworn in January, but like in 6 months, like what's the weight of that, like what's its purchase to say, hey, we built this relationship, can you not pass this bill to vote back in slavery? I mean, I don't know, you get what I'm saying, like something super
yeah, absolutely.
extreme, like what's the weight of that in reality?
I think it varies member by member. And for me, it's very weighty. And I have
Mm,
made it a point to be extremely selective about who do
okay.
I want to work with? Who do I think is actually,
Yeah.
a conservative in principle? They genuinely believe these things. Actually, I think all of them are conservative in principle, but like, are you engaging in good faith in the political process? Or are you just engaging in messaging? Are you trying to become a communicator on behalf of the MAGA movement, for
Right.
example?
Right.
I have so far I've not engaged with some of those members, because there's just, it's going to be hard to break through what has become a very pervasive ideology in our politics nowadays. And there was an anti-DEI bill filed last Friday, for example,
Yeah,
and
there you go. Something like that.
in the bill, it even carves out protected classes like disabled folks, veterans, and some other groups, and it kind of makes you take a step back and say, well, then what is this bill really about?
Right.
Because it feels like an attack on Black and brown people. So why should I come and work with you, or why would I even want to build a relationship with you as a young Black person?
Right.
That just, I'm good on it. But then there are others where, and as I mentioned, we were talking about beforehand, some of our freshman colleagues that we met were very good people. I mean, at orientation and different events early on, getting to talk to them, learn about their background, their families, their interests, and you find out, oh, like, no, I really would love to work with you on this particular issue, because we were able to have a great conversation and found common ground here. But then in the building, sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
I
I think
think
what's cool about you is that I'm sorry, Ron.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think what's really cool about you is that you do come from Charlotte. You come from, an experience that, a lot of the folks that are in government do not have. Our state legislature is extremely white. It is extremely polarized, as we said earlier. But the thing is, your lens that you're viewing politics from, and its material conditions for the human beings that exist in your district and probably the state as well, is probably through a systemic lens, right? These things aren't just individual, bad luck or someone's morality is the reason why they're poor, the reason why they're in a food desert. But do your other colleagues, Democrat or Republican, like I could imagine that would be an uphill battle to get them to see it systemically and not just like, is this some wokeness or some DEI-ness to your point about the DEI bill? Like it's easy to just say those letters are something we're against instead of saying, well, systemically, there has been a historical negative impact on the people of North Carolina. Do you understand this, Mr. Democrat or Republican, who may not look like the three of us? They may be more palm colored.
Yes and no. I mean, as clearly as that, yes and no. Some members, and I don't know all 119 other members of the state
Come
house
on,
quite
man.
yet,
What you talking about? You don't know everybody yet. What are you doing?
but I will say so far, some, and yes, some on the Republican side even know, they know, and you have and I'll take a step back to say what you see on TV
Yeah.
or what you read on Twitter or Facebook or TikTok isn't always what it's like in that building. It can be very collegial and very like full of camaraderie. There you go. And you can have really candid conversations with folks. You'll come to a point where you realize you're disagreeing or you're about to disagree. And sometimes you may, say, hey, well, then we can end the conversation. But then sometimes you keep going and you just kind of challenge, not in a negative way either, but challenge each other's beliefs to just try to learn more about each other. And you'll figure out, oh, you get it. You just see a different outcome, A, or B, you get it, but you want to use this as you mentioned before, oh, that's woke ideology. Oh, this is DEI and it's harming us. It's DEI is reverse racism because you know that also plays well with your base and you want to use it to communicate and to build a brand because I mean we're politicians now, right? We all want to boost our image and we all want to build some type of brand for ourselves, whether it be to keep our current seat or run for another one. But
Right.
you find a bit of both, and honestly, a bit on both sides of the aisle, where you may talk to a member, and I will say my Democratic colleagues are better for it if I do say so
Sure.
myself.
Yeah.
But
Right.
sometimes you'll come across a member and you'll talk to them and you'll realize, oh, you aren't seeing this the same way that I am. Let's talk about it and let me explain why what you said may offend others or what you said offended me or what you said just doesn't quite capture the whole picture of what's going on. And they are usually more receptive and are more likely to actually change their tune or to at very least, modify that perspective going forward. But yeah, it happens on both sides for sure. And then so I'll leave it at that.
I think, especially growing up as a Black and Latino person in America, like we have to understand what it's like to live in a white America. We understand their perspective very well. For a white person who lives in America, it's an option for them to kind of gain our perspective and how we live life. And so I think that a lot of folks don't care to try to see that perspective. I do think, in growing up for myself, is I've come across a lot of white people, and I've talked to a lot of white people. A lot of them come in with an ignorant perspective, but they actually can be talked to and reasoned with to a degree. A lot just don't want to hear it. They don't care to. They don't think. They just think that it's everything's. Oh, it's a race card or all this stuff. And I think if we don't have like honest conversations, and the race is part of the honest conversation, and our experiences and the things that affect Black and brown Americans. And so I think I'm glad that you're seeing some threads that you can at least have those conversations with, but hopefully they do turn into policies, tangible policies, and tangible actions. So.
Well, yeah, I think larger though, it's the idea of, do you interpersonally like me versus are you willing to accept and get your hands dirty to move these boulders, these systemic and institutional boulders that are obstacles for people that look like us, right? I mean, Martin Luther King's famous quote: "Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Like these are two things that you could be either one. I think sometimes even we get the wool pulled over our eyes when someone's like, I like you, Jordan, as Jordan. But like, I think all Black people or Latino people are the rapists and murderers and drug dealers. Like, it's this like they make a separate category
You're one of the
for
good
us.
ones.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
one of
you're,
the good
yeah,
ones.
I was just about to say you're one of the good ones.
And
And trust me, in a space dominated by white people, and I don't, again, not in a pejorative way, like I don't mean that
Right.
negatively. It's just the reality of the building.
yeah,
Right, exactly.
You get that feeling a lot, and it's it's challenging at times, but especially being a young member,
Yeah.
I've been mistaken for staff a handful of times since
Oh,
being
word?
elected. Yes. Who do you work for? I'm a member. I'm nobody. I work for the people of House
Dang.
District 112, actually. Like,
Don't
thanks
you
for
have like,
asking.
is it like in DC where y'all have a pin
We have a
or?
pin.
Oh,
We do
Oh,
have a
yeah.
pin.
wow.
We have badges that very clearly delineate between representative or senator and then staff. And it's like, hey, at one point, once I did get asked who I worked for, and I admittedly, childishly, just opened my jacket. Like, you see my
Right.
badge. I'm a
Right.
representative, and
You see it. You see it.
it's like because is it on purpose? Probably not, but it's still just that sense of, oh, you're young and you're brown, you must work for somebody. There's no way you're elected here because you're not an older Black person. And then that's also just plays into the dynamics of
Yeah.
how difficult it is to run for legislature and to serve in the building in the first place. You're
Right.
either, retired, independently wealthy, or you are running your own business, or maybe you and your partner have a business that you're running together that gives you the flexibility to do it. There just aren't, and there's two of us folks under 30 and under 28
Wow.
at the legislature, and
Wow.
or at least under 30 in the house. I can say that'd be accurate. And so it's just not a place built for young people. It's not a place that has historically been welcoming to brown people. And at the end of the day, that's one of the things I find most exciting about the opportunity, is that I get to change that and be a part of that front that makes that different. Like, no, you're gonna have to get used to seeing young Black and brown folks walking these halls,
That's right.
because we deserve to be here too. We have voices that deserve to be heard. We have stories that deserve to be heard, perspectives, as we talked about a few moments ago, that deserve to be heard, that may have never been considered before, but that could contribute to creating some of the best policies, or at least better policies than we've seen before too. So
So
Right.
there's a positive and a negative to it.
Yep. So I know we're coming up on our time with you, but I have one more question for you. Like, how do we get more, how do you see getting more youth involved, not necessarily to become the next Jordan, but to actually pay attention to politics and get more people like Jordan into not just politics, but actually into the House, the Senate, and running for elections? How do we, especially like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, what do you see in there? What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I think it's having conversations in spaces either like this or in person. A young elected named Chris Suggs, Councilmember Chris Suggs out in Kinston, North Carolina. He and I did a couple of barbershop talks this past summer, where we engaged with young Black men in barbershops, talking about what matters to y'all, or matters to us, excuse me, as a collective. And I think having those types of candid conversations in a medium that is comfortable and familiar with us all, just it starts a process where you start thinking about it. You're engaging with somebody who looks like you, but who
Yep.
is an elected official and making decisions that impact everybody. And maybe it does what seeing President Obama did, or what
Yep.
seeing President Obama speak did to me. And it just kind of sparks a light bulb. And it may not make you want to run for office, but it, like you said, it may get you saying, well, I'll at least start paying attention. And then one thing I always say is, in having those conversations, or even if it's not a full-blown conversation, but you just maybe kid off, have a couple comments back and forth with a young person, figure out what they're interested in, and then trying to connect them or point them in the direction of a group or an activity that does that interest. I always tell people, everything is, when it's not like I made this up either, everything is political.
That's
And
right.
so if you're interested in computers, you can likely find a group that not only teaches digital literacy to folks in the community, but they may have an advocacy arm that then is going to their local government, county government, or state government, and asking for funding to expand their program or to keep it going on. And then that there is your entrance into politics. You may be interested in biking. I had a good friend here in the East Charlotte area who was a phenomenal advocate for not only bike infrastructure. He was really a phenomenal advocate in general, but specifically for bikes, because he had a story that really prevented him from accessing a car, at least permanently accessing a car. And it became that riding a bike was not only the easiest way to get around, but also the cheapest way to get around. Got him in
Yeah.
shape, let him see things from a different perspective, and he used that to then start a couple of advocacy groups in the Charlotte area. He went on to be a leader in the Bike Advocacy Council here in the Charlotte area. He in an urbanist group that I want to say he was one of the founders. He, because of how much he was on the sides of the roads where most people in cars aren't paying attention to, notice, hey, a lot of our bus stops in Charlotte don't even have benches. Let's crowd raise to buy just these used benches and seats that we can just chain to the pole where the bus stop is, to make sure that the folks who are using the bus have somewhere to sit if they're waiting for the 30 minutes that it sometimes takes for a bus to come. It just, long story short, find something you're interested in, find a
Right.
group that champions that interest, and see where it takes you, because you'd be surprised at how it snowball effects into greater involvement. And then next thing you know, you're walking around the legislature advocating or serving, and fighting for those issues and interests that you care about.
Yeah,
I think
that's
the beauty of someone like yourself who's young, and that speaks like this is it's the old adage that you can't be what you can't see, right? And
Yeah,
so for young people, like, and again, we got a few years on you. Me and Ron are the same age, but like, so I'm gonna age him too with me. But for someone like yourself, it's like, man, like, if I was 14, I'm assuming I'm not good at math, but like you were probably around 14 or 13 when you saw that Obama in
I think that's
2012.
about right.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's remarkable, right? Like, to be that young and then to get that light bulb on. I was in my mid 20s when I started thinking more politically minded. Um, because that's amazing. And I have one last question. I know Ron gave you one last question, but if you don't mind, I have one last question.
yeah, no
Um,
problem.
in this moment, a lot of folks are looking for, the Democratic Party to have a spine and backbone to fight against some of these more, we talked about some of these more extreme bills that are coming out of these legislatures, especially more Republican legislatures across the country. I know you're just getting your feet wet. I know you're just getting, your feet planted, but you also come from a background working within the legislature, or working for someone who's in the legislature. Um, but like, what does your fight look like when things may heat up, right? When it may become more of an extreme cult of personality, more than we've even seen before, right? Where laws may get trampled on, and human rights may get trampled on. And we're, because people are asking me as a chair, hey Ron, why aren't you calling, Kamala Harris? Why aren't you out there stopping Donald Trump? I mean, I got an email a couple days ago. Why aren't you stopping Donald Trump? And I'm like, what? I'm in Union County, North Carolina, as an unpaid chair who works a full-time job and has two little kids. What are you talking about? But of course, I didn't say that. But do you see what I'm saying? So, like, I guess
Absolutely.
from folks who are elected officials who do have the promise, they do have a platform, they do have power. Even if you're in the minority, totally understand. Not saying you should be able to have any actual legislative power. But what does your fight look like in a moment like this? And what hope can you give folks who are looking to the Democratic Party to push back on some of this regressive policies?
It's a great question. Half, I will say, I am still trying to figure out.
Sure.
As a new member, learning the ins and outs of the building, and not even just like legislatively in the minority. I don't have any legislative power, but what can we do, or where are the limits? Excuse me, that I can push. And granted, we haven't seen. We were about a month and a half in. We haven't really.
Sure.
We've only had maybe 3 real votes. Um, so the real controversial stuff hasn't come. But where are the limits that I can push, or what are the limits that I can push when a really bad bill comes that we know is going to pass? And how far can I take it before I put myself in at some sort of risk? And at the end of the day, risk may be necessary too going
Yeah.
forward, because we are talking about. I mean, I represent 90,000 people who are looking at me to represent their interests in Raleigh. So it does maybe come with a personal risk for myself to step up and say, hey, speaker blank, or hey, member Y, no, like, you may have me removed, but I'm going to stand here in opposition of this bill because I don't believe in it, and I believe it harms the people that I was sent here um, by to represent, sent here to represent for. I'm having a bit of an issue with my words there.
It's a long
But
day
then
for
the
you.
other
No,
half,
you're just in Raleigh. Folks, he
it's
was in
been a
Raleigh. He
long
just
week.
he just got back. It's all good.
But then I think the other half that I am very secure in and that I believe in is communication.
Mm,
I believe that ensuring the folks who follow me and who continue to start following me know what is going on, that I lay
Mm,
out what is happening from my perspective, as I believe they should be seeing it and hearing about it as well. And then trying to give them direction on where you can go to express those concerns. You should be calling your senators about this issue. You should be calling your state representatives about that issue, especially if you live in this particular area that's represented by a Republican. Remind them that you're not complicit in this. You represent me too, Representative,
yeah.
Republican member guy over here. I deserve to be heard, or show up to the legislature itself and start like banging on doors and just like demanding to be heard. Um, and I've tried to, especially since taking office, I'm gonna hopefully stick to a consistent schedule of putting content out, of informing people about what is going on, and
Yeah.
trying to give some sort of direction about what you can do, or at the very least what comes next, so then you can prepare what you're gonna do, in order to fight back, or at the very least to make sure your voice is heard, because there is power in numbers, and there is a lot of importance and significance in showing up as a collective and saying, no, we don't believe in this. Even if, and this Republican majority has done this in the past, even if they
Hmm.
still don't hear you, but that gives you even more of a reason to, in your collective, in your numbers, get out into their communities and educate more of their members about what's going on. Like, just trying to bring more people into the fight. And I believe communicating and informing folks on what's going on is one of the best ways to do it, which is why I love this podcast, and was excited to get on, because I know that is exactly one of the things that y'all are trying to do, is let's create a medium and space for people to come and hear about what's going on, and let's inspire folks to get involved. It's needed.
Yeah.
It's
I
that so that's another way I've approached it.
I
Excuse me.
think the power's with the people, and I'm glad you didn't say you don't have any leverage, things like that. But there is power with the people,
Absolutely.
power with the numbers, thinking outside the box. So I enjoyed talking to you. Hopefully, have you back on
Yes, sir.
Likewise.
in the future. Again,
Yeah.
Please do. I mean,
congratulations.
hey, we've
We'll
got a
let you get
long
some more
session coming up.
experience, man.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say we got a long session coming up. At some point, we're going to be talking about it, or some point. I mean, Senator Berger the other day said that we'd have it before Good Friday. I highly doubt that, but at some point in the future, we're going to have a budget. I would love to talk more about it when we get it, just to
Sure.
share
Yeah.
about what's in it, some of the tactics behind the budget, and how it's used as a vehicle to push some of the more dangerous policies at a state level. So yeah, I would love to come back. Really
Oh,
enjoyed this conversation.
Awesome.
all
Awesome.
right.
Well, folks, we have Rep Jordan Lopez representing the 112th District of North Carolina. And thank you so much for coming on the Radical Cruise podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me on. Y'all take care and be easy. I'll be
Thank you.
watching
All
the
right.
rest of it on my phone though.
All right.
All
Take
right
care.
now.
Bye.
Alrighty, y'all take care.
All right.
Well, all right. All right.
So, you know,
Our first elected official.
yes, yeah, we've and I
Look
think
at
we
that.
have a true. I don't know if we should say it yet till it's official.
No,
But
I don't know, because folks ain't confirmed yet. Folks
okay,
ain't confirmed yet. You know
But
what I mean?
we might have a big one for you, a pretty big
Well,
one
I think so.
at the
I think
state
so.
level.
Oh yeah.
But we one of the things he mentioned was the youth and what they might be interested in, and I was at the Monroe city council meeting last month, and this 11-year-old boy came up, and at first I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna come up. His parents got him up here saying some bullshit, but no, he actually came up and he spoke very well, and he was talking about a skate park, man. He was like advocating for a skate park, and I know he's 11, but like, I mean, I think it is like kind of reaching out to like, what do they care about at these ages, especially like even that early, right? Like, and to start to
Right.
understand like, how does a skate park come about in my community? How does a park come about in my community, or things that because when I was in high school, I didn't really I didn't think politics was my I don't think I was just like interested. For me, it was also Obama in 2008 that kind of got me more interested. I was excited to
Yeah.
vote in 2004, even though the person was John Kerry, but I think it's going to be a key to the future of politics, and especially when you look at how much these decisions that these politicians make affect future generations, our kids. So it's important that they're aware. We had a question from somebody in the audience. They had a thought that they shared. It was from somebody who else is also young, but they said, as a youth, I've become frustrated to the point of wondering, should we leftists try to stay within the system? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a fantastic question. That's why I asked it. That's why my final question was basically that. Like, we're at a dire moment where we need folks to, yes, I'm not knocking anything the brother said, but yes, people articulate what is going on, as as we always say, put it to where the goats can get it, make it plain for people. But also, folks want to know that like their material conditions are they're waning, they're suffering, they're seeing less opportunity for them to get ahead, and on top of that, we have a party that is actively invested in keeping the status quo going, if not making that delta even wider between the haves and the have-nots, not just financially, but also social capital, right? A racialized hierarchy, a genderized hierarchy, a sexual orientation hierarchy. Young folks they understand that politics is more than just voting every 4 years. They understand that their lives are at threat, their parents' lives are at threat, and within the system, I think the system is showing us. I was over the weekend. I watched it was at Howard Law School. They were having a conversation for Black History Month. They had a few Black lawyers on, just some luminaries, Dr. Carr. They hosted Mark Lamont Hill and a few other activists. But I do forget the brother's name, but he's one of the law professors at Howard. But he said the U.S. Constitution was meant to protect a situation like what happened for Donald Trump to become president. He said, because the Constitution was made for wealthy, white, land-owning men. He said the Bill of Rights came afterwards. And a lot of folks like to say, well, our Constitution is this and our Constitution is that. And he's like, but we forget this document was not for any of us. It wasn't for poor white people. It wasn't for women. It wasn't for indigenous people. It definitely wasn't for the enslaved. So there's a level of like, when we try to hold on to that Constitution, that we're almost cutting our nose off to spite our face. And so I'm bringing all that back to the question that sometimes the Democrats can become the party of the institution. They become the institutionalist. And I understand why, because these institutions got us the quote unquote freedom, even though I dare I say we were all born free. It was the state that imposed, these obstacles in front of us. But yeah, I think folks are looking for a bold statement and moment, or a bold statement to meet the moment, I should say. And within the party, or within the institution, was the question about in the Democratic Party, was in just politics in general?
The system in general, which I
The
perceive
system,
as, Democrat and Republican,
sure.
and the normal, voting and represent, like we're in a different world. So I don't think we're in a normal system, but I think the thing in
Yeah,
terms of
I
party.
think we have to be. I think we have to acknowledge, the moment that we're in. I think the younger folks like Jordan, the younger folks like Jasmine Crockett, the younger folks like AOC, the younger folks like Ayanna Presley, the younger folks like Maxwell Frost. These are people that are articulating what is the threat to all of us. That we are, dare I not say sliding into fascism, but fascism is here. It's not at the front door. It's on the couch eating your potato chips.
Mhm.
And if you can't articulate that, it sounds like you're not willing to accept it, which means you're not willing to resist it.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly believe that those folks they're ready to work outside the system if need be. And I don't think you can. I mean, no one ever voted out fascism, and you can't vote out fascism.
Yeah.
And that's just the cold truth.
Yeah, I think within the Democratic Party, I think I see it as means to an end because it is the largest
Yeah.
group. That there are people within the party that have things in common with what I want, but there's also people like now Hakeem Jeffries who's saying,
Ammo leverage.
leverage, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Right.
and I see the things he's saying, and it seems like he's trying to keep order and not really meet the moment, and that type of thing. It's like, I'm like, well, if we did this without the Democratic Party, it's probably putting us more at risk. But sometimes I'm like, man, like we need some. If the leaders are saying this, then we got to think outside the think maybe differently. So, like we talked about the other day, it's a big tent within the Democratic Party. We got to find a way to like get people's voices heard while still kind of coming together from a national perspective. And it's hard because you mentioned like Republicans, they're like 90% white men. Like it's easy to have that same common things in common and get in line and kind of thinking about those things. So I think the best thing that could ever happen to America, or at least is a 3-4 party system, right? And unfortunately, that I don't think that's in the deck right now, but it also might
Yeah, we
be.
just haven't.
It might be we
We have
might be
no
in that
mechanism for
position.
it.
Who knows where we're going to be in the next 2 years, and that might just come about
Right.
out of the nature of things, because we don't get out of this position without anything short of revolution and radical actions. And how that takes place is not through what we're doing today. It's not waiting till 2026 and thinking that 2026 is one, that there's going to be an election. Two, it's not going to be heavily gerrymandered and tampered with. So, to have that assumption that people are going to be able to go vote like they normally have, and that it's going to be fair, that we're going to have transparency, that the counts are going to be fair, the courts are going to be fair. That's a big assumption. Like,
no threats. No threats.
Yeah, you see everything that's happening, and we think that it's just going to be normal. There was threats on election day in Georgia, right? And they were shutting down election sites that were,
or supposedly they said.
Yeah, so exactly, supposedly, right? So it's not normal, and it takes a lot more to It's going to take a lot more to overcome to actually have those type of things. So I don't think that we can just wait and see. So
I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm about to transition. So
all right, get it going, brother.
Yeah,
get it going.
Thank you for if you're still here or if you're joining. Please like, share, comment, questions, subscribe on YouTube, share with your friends. We appreciate it. And I know you got on your people's, so we haven't had to change, get on and see we're wearing the same thing yet. So the People's Free Food Program, Black Panthers, the Blackest Co. is that company. I got on my Blackballed hat, so I do golf. Blackballed is a black-owned clothing company, golf company. So they actually got some cool golf bags. They got apparel, accessories. I've been wearing their pants for quite some time. They're super comfortable. Check them out. And so I want to talk about some things we can do. I think people are itching, what do I do? We're in a period of what do I do? And I think a month ago, I felt like, a lot of yelling into the void, and we were talking about these things. And I think people are starting to wake up. There's still a lot of people sleeping that they don't know what fascism is. They don't know what authoritarianism is. They haven't really familiarized themselves with history. But there's been a lot of publicity in the past week around February 28th, tomorrow, Friday.
Yeah.
The
economic
blackout. So I'm gonna let's see. Hopefully this works here. So tomorrow, do not buy anything. If you do, local, minority, black owned, things like that.
Even use cash.
Exactly. Use cash, because if you use your credit card, they're making money. Somebody's making money. So, and I would advise you not to shop tonight. I would save it for March. I think that this is going to be a show of force and power if it is done correctly and at a high level. It will mess up February numbers. However, in the long scheme of things, people tend to, they'll buy it on March 1st, right? So in general, I know we've been talking about it, trying to work towards a general boycott, right? So I'm trying to not buy things outside of the necessities. Target have not been since January, right?
Nope.
Target is the primary target. Do not buy from Target. But even Amazon, Walmart cut back on completely, let my Prime expire. I've had to buy a couple things on Amazon just because we cannot find the things we're looking for.
I got you.
But it's to be honest, and with everyone, it is not easy. It's not easy to just change overnight. It's something that you have to work on. But it's absolutely something I highly encourage, is to use that economic power to spend wise. And it's nice not seeing things at the door. I don't have to give my wife what is this? But saving money too.
All these boxes everywhere.
And and so and to be fair, it's a privilege to not be able to try to not spend tomorrow. But people have to buy their things. They get paid on Friday. You have buying their necessities. So do what you can. Do what's within reason for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, because I was hearing people say stuff like, "Well, what if my kid is sick? I got to go buy." I'm like, "Oh, clearly, come on."
Yeah.
No one's saying that, but it's the superfluous spending. It's the extra stuff. It's the going out to your local restaurant that's supporting Trump. It's a chain restaurant. It's the putting money in Jeff Bezos's coffers or all. That's what we're talking about, folks. I mean, clearly, if there's an emergency, no one's saying, "Well, I gotta wait until tomorrow." No one's saying that. So please use some discernment and have a clear-eyed head. But we want to have this be a moment of collective solidarity to show our strength. And dare I say, Rom, dare I say, it would be great if folks could extend this, not the whole like blackout, I'm not spending any money, but expand your aperture as it relates to the stores you're impacting, right? Do some research on your favorite stores, do some research on just in general, the economy. You may want to, withhold some of those dollars, right? Because we don't know what's coming down the pike. We see that they're doing all this economic chicanery. It might be a time for us to again withhold our money, withhold our power, because that's the only thing that impacts our oppressors. And that's exactly what's going on right now. Is we're having a class war that is meant to destabilize the working class. And the Republicans, they have, they love saying waste, fraud, and abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse. It's to the point it gets added to the zeitgeist. But I wrote some notes down earlier. I'm like, if Democrats could get a little sharper with our language, and we start repeating stuff on repeat, where that just becomes what it is. I'm like, we should be saying taxes, tariffs, and terminations. Taxes, tariffs, and terminations. Taxes, tariffs, and terminations. That's what the Republicans are bringing you. In these taxes, tariffs, and terminations, what this will do is it'll impact and eviscerate the middle class and working class, and especially the impoverished class, just to line the pockets of these wealthy uh billionaires that want to have, they want to hit $1 trillion like Elon Musk. They can get another yacht and write that off. They are bringing taxes, tariffs, and terminations. That'll impact you, your community. It'll shut down your hospitals. It'll shut down your grocery stores. It'll raise the price of what you're paying. It'll make sure that we're paying for unnecessary trade wars just because Donald Trump wants to have a dick measuring contest with Vladimir Putin to feel like he's the big boy of the house. I'm the big boy. So, like, yeah, I think as Democrats or folks who are on the left, we absolutely need to be repeating just as much as they love to say waste, fraud, and abuse, taxes, tariffs, and terminations.
Yeah, and when people like Hakeem Jeffries, and I'm gonna keep picking on him,
Yeah, for
say that
sure.
there's no leverage. These things are type of things can be your leverage. He can endorse it,
Yep.
something like this, and just show a force, right? And I think if the Republicans and their side, that whole white ring side, they get a message, and it's like that's the message of the day. It's trickles throughout the entire ecosystem very rapidly, and they're in unison. Whether they are in office, they're influencers, they're the people. That's
On
the
the
message
street.
of the day. It just goes. So maybe
Bro,
he.
just real quick, I was in the gym about a week ago, and I'm walking in, and it's around lunchtime, and there's these two like 45 to 50 year, I can't tell how old white people are. I'm sorry, but they clearly look like they've got some city miles on them. And so these guys are like, and they're talking about USAID, and they're like, USAID is just, they're just sending money for condoms and gauze, and like they're like going back and forth with the lies. And I'm like shaking my head. I'm like, you really bought that ticket, and now you got to take the ride. And they're almost gleefully happy that this is happening, that the government itself is being dismantled. Mind you, they're probably, we're here in Union County, there's a lot of rural folks, USDA, they're not going to get, their funding for their farms. And it's just, they would rather focus on the small stuff rather than the collective good of everybody. And I'm like, if we can just get a message, to your point, Rom, that is on repeat. But I just couldn't. But that's everybody. It's Donald Trump. It's Tom Tillis. It is Jimmy Benchin here locally. Like it's someone in the grocery store or someone at the gym, and they're all saying the same thing. And we're
Yep.
saying, well, I care about this, and then you're saying I care about that, and she's saying I care about this, and they're saying I care about that, because we are everybody else. That's the thing. We are everybody else, and we got to kind of be okay with that. But we got to be saying, who is our collective enemy? And some of us are still finding validity or credulity in our enemy. And I'm like, what? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?
Yeah. Um. And the other thing that went through the yesterday, I think it was yesterday too, whenever they passed the budget reconciliation, the kind of preliminary in the House, right? Then one of the House representatives, Republican, forgot her name. She's, we passed no taxes on tips,
Anna
no
Paulina
taxes on
Luna.
overtime. Yes, thank you. And then that was the word. Like you got that out there, and then she deleted it later. But that
Had
was
to.
what
A dirty
spread.
delete.
So you know they have a message. Whether or not it's true does not matter. Elon, oh, that sounds interesting. And then that's that's the truth. Doge, they put it out there. These numbers, they saved $8 billion. No, a week later it's 8 million. Oh, we make mistakes, but no one said goes back. By then it's already out there. You know what I'm saying? So
And no one's asking the question like where's all this money going? Because like what they're saying, we found 10% fraud and now we're going to slash 10%. That doesn't make sense. Like if you had a business, Ron, right, and you found out people were stealing 10% of your items, you wouldn't just say, okay, what I'm going to do now is have 10% less items. That doesn't even make sense. You wouldn't do, but that's what they're selling us, and the media is repeating it like Doge is saving $50 billion. It's like
I did notice CBS and some of the couple others are starting to fact check, but it's like that was your job a week ago. You know what I'm saying? Now
right.
you're jumping on and you kind of co-signed it, the same
Yep.
thing, and now you're either jumping on the bandwagon or deciding to do journalism and fact check. I don't really know, but it's irresponsible. You're just spreading their lies, you're propagating their lies, and then you're correcting it a week later. By then, in that ecosystem, it's truth. They believe that the bill has passed. There's no more taxes on tips. There's
On
no more
tips
taxes
and
on overtime.
overtime.
Like there's a
Hmm.
large amount of people that actually believe that's the case, and that was just stuff
And
thrown
they're
at
about
us.
to get that $5,000 check. It's coming. It's coming.
Oh
That
yeah,
$5,000.
yeah, on February 31st. You even have people believing that
That's
it's
right.
coming
That's
on
right,
February
baby.
31st. So, but the one thing I will say is that sets up for disappointment too, right? Because they come to expect and those things never come. So those things will backfire. But let's have
If,
Hakeem Jeffries take a page from a couple of these things that are going on.
yeah, I would just love if we could just get some sort of rhetoric, because that's what the Democratic Party needs is rhetoric right now. Like, if you don't have the institutional power, you got the power of the people, hopefully. I mean, but again, if the people are seeing you not even fighting, again, this is to a degree we became very tribalized. We are. It's almost like a team sport politics. And folks, I don't watch the NFL or anything like that, but like I watch, other sports. But like if you have your team, and if your team loses, it's like, that sucks. But if they played their ass off, they're playing their heart out, you're okay with that. And I think to a degree, the Democratic Party, if they were just go down swinging, people would be like, all right, you know what? I know y'all gonna lose on that bill. I know y'all gonna lose on that vote. I know you're gonna lose in this house. I know you're gonna lose in Congress. I know you're gonna lose in the Senate. I know you're gonna lose against Trump. I know you're gonna lose in the courts against the Supreme Court. But damn it, try. And try like you give a damn about the people that you're representing. And because guess what? You're a part of the people. But it's really, I said it before, I think on our first episode, it's really hard to rail against the 1% when the 1% is lining your campaign reelection, especially for the folks in the higher up offices.
Mm-hmm. So let's shift gears a little bit again. So today, I made a phone call to. I've been making phone
Yes.
calls to the
Yeah.
Senator Tillis,
Yep.
Senator help me out here,
Bud.
Ted. Was it Ted Bud? Man,
Yeah, Bud.
Bud, and then it's my House representative, right, too. And so, um, uh, anyways, I've seen in the news that Tillis is backing away, distancing himself from Doge. So Tillis is very good at lip service. Tillis is very good
Yeah. I mean, I don't
at
give a shit.
pretending, to be in the middle, and and at the end of the day, he's not that trustworthy. But anyways, there's an app. It's called 5 Calls.
Yep.
And so, let's see where we go. Here we go. So it's called 5 Calls. You can download the app on your phone. You put in your address. It's going to connect you. It's going to link you to your 2 senators and your House representative. And it's going to give you a list of things you can call about, and then it'll give you a script and a phone number. You just click the number. Up until today, I've been getting voicemails, right? And so, or it just says voicemail full, like they're not even taking it. That's Bud's office, by the way, every time. But I got through to a staffer today at Tillis's office, and he picked up, and I said I'm a chief information security and AI officer, and
Yep.
I'm calling because I'm concerned about Elon Musk and what he's doing because he's likely violating data privacy laws, training his systems. But here's what I got. My point was at the end was we don't know. There's no oversight. There's no transparency. And when I say we, I don't necessarily mean the people. Like, we don't necessarily have to know everything, how the system's in and out. We probably shouldn't. However, there should be some oversight, whether it's congressional, whether it's inspector generals that are actually informed. Trump doesn't even know what's actually going on. The Congress has no idea. They don't understand technology. They have no idea what's going on, right? They don't know what he's doing once he's in these systems. That data within within the government is worth billions of dollars. When you have all that data of all the transactions, who all these people are, their ages, their pay, their social security numbers, whatever, that's something that people would pay $1 billion for, that type of data to train their AI systems. They're weakening our cybersecurity infrastructure by bringing in these people who had no security clearance or have some expedited, weak security clearance. They don't go through the same that every other government person with clearances had to go through. So they've put our entire government at risk, and there's no one that actually is saying, hey, what are you actually doing? And for Congress, that's your job. Like, Congress is actually, their job is to control the purse. They've just given their job over to Elon Musk. They really have no purpose anymore. The Republicans has completely given it away. So at any point, if the Republicans get in the way of Trump, they're no longer able. They have no power to actually do anything anymore, in my opinion. But anyways, 5 calls. That's another action item for folks.
Yeah, I think folks, they can get involved in doing all this stuff. I use 5 calls. I try to call every day. I think I missed today and yesterday, but I try to do at least 3 times a week. I'll say that much. But I do it. Say it again.
I was gonna say, hit the staffer I talked to. He was like, he had heard. He was almost like, yeah. It was almost like he was on our side. Like, I mean, it wasn't like
Maybe he was
frustrated. He was like, yeah, I understand. I've heard it. Yeah, it was very like a sympathetic tone. It definitely wasn't combative that some people have reported. So, and it's not that they give you a script, folks, and I went off script, but like, just do it. It adds up.
Yeah, and we talked about this with Jordan before or Rep Lopez, I should say. Let me give him his right titling, Rep Lopez. But like, I think what's happening is, like, Democrats are always like, I represent everybody, especially Democratic presidents, Democratic senators. I represent my state, I represent my district, I represent my school board people, whatever. Democrats are always like that. Republicans are like, I represent my Republican primary voters. And that's a big difference. I don't know if you have any clips of all these town halls. If you could pull one of those up, all these town halls we've been seeing. There's a bunch of these clips going around, but these town halls have been filled. And these are Republican states, folks. These are Republican states filled with Republican voters and the Republican reps and senators and all that good stuff that are coming back from DC, and they are pissed. They are pissed. And I don't think that
when I started drinking warm water,
in this anger they have, this vitriol they have towards their representatives, that I don't think they understand that this was always the plan for Republicans. And sadly, a lot of us have known that this is what. Oh, you got this Rachel Maddow clip. Yeah, play
you
this.
can keep talking while I was just playing without the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But but this is not uncommon, and I have thoughts on this. I'm going to talk about on the other side, but this has been a common situation over the past, what do you say, probably 2 weeks, man. Since all this Doge stuff's been happening, because this is a good one. Yeah, this is the one I was actually thinking about.
Illegal as hell.
That's illegal as hell.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
He's gotten rid of birthright citizenship.
Because I think that someone says wrong as hell at the end of this.
Yeah, and they're like, he'd say, "Oh, Doge is doing all these great things," and they're like, "Well, it's illegal." Like, okay, got rid of birthright citizenship. You mean he overrode the Constitution? Like, he decided that he could just?
It's like, no, he didn't. No, he just wrote it on it. And this is this whole thing. Ironically, we're talking about like the DEI stuff. Like, Trump doing these executive orders, which are not self-executing. There's no legal enforcement. There's no enforcement mechanism. So these companies that are bending the knee, like Target, and then earlier today we found out it was also, let me make sure I get it right here. Paramount Global said they're rolling back their DEI policies. So that's over BET, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, MTV, CBS, and all Paramount Global things. But these are things that are like, you don't have to do this. Basically Trump said, "Oh, I'm getting rid." Like, for example, he signed an executive order saying there's only 2 genders. Did that get rid of trans people? No. So, like, you don't have to do this stuff. He's not going to go around like, okay, you still call yourself trans or you're not trans. That's not how it works. And this is this bending the knee. This is this obeying in advance. It's like, oh, Trump wrote down that he figured out cold fusion. It's like, but did he? No, he didn't. But like, it's just this idea that these executive orders, and I get it. There's a civics, there's a dearth of civics knowledge that folks have in this country. But these are people who have power. These are people, excuse me, that are running corporations, that are wealthy, or at least of the wealth class, or they're at least not of the working class or of the poverty class. These are people still afraid of these things that Trump is putting out there. And because I think they honestly have always wanted to do these things. But like, you don't have to bend the knee because he wrote on a piece of paper that, I am the king of America. And everybody's like, well, he said he's the king of America, so you have to do that. Because again, they're his base voters. They wanted this, and now they're upset in these town halls. But my thoughts on it, and again, people are just upset about these people. But I don't think, Ramen, I want to get your take on this. I don't think that they're mad enough. I don't think these people in these town halls are mad enough. And I also don't trust them enough to be like, oh, this is the revolution, because I also have seen a lot of people who have lost their jobs, federal jobs, like, well, this is a sacrifice I got to make America great again. In the media, but they'll play like 2 or 3 folks to be like, well, there's this backlash to Trump. But I don't think these folks are mad enough.
They may not be mad enough, but you got to think about, there's also a lot more people sitting at home doing nothing, at all, and just kind of saying, well, there's nothing I can do. Where's my leverage at home? And I think that these people who are out there are, they have given publicity. I think that they're, it's infectious, like you said, it's contagious. People see this, like, all right, I'm going to go to the next town hall. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind, right? And to that woman that got carried out, I don't know if you saw her.
She was a Democrat. She was a Democrat. They ran for office. Just FYI, she wasn't a Republican.
She wasn't, and they're not all, but they're constituents, right? And so, at the end of the day, these people are constituents. But she sat there. She did not move. And these were, these were people who, they weren't police. They were security, and we didn't know this when we first saw this video. Like, well, who are these people? You're not. There's no badge.
They're brown shirts.
You're not saying who you are, and but she took it, and the guy next to her, he gets up out his seat and kind of just gets out the way, and it's like, no, dude, like, you sit there and get in the way. Get into the way, like, who? This
is what we need. But seriously, this is what we need from. But like, I hear you on the rights thing too. But like, look, we're moving to a point past laws, and I'm not even trying to, I'm not trying to stoke any violence or anything like that. But like, you see what they're willing to do. They're willing to lay hands on people they do not know, and this is why I've been telling my black folks, y'all better not be going to these town halls like this. This is time for our white brothers and sisters who are serious about this. Y'all get y'all asses in there and go get in the way. And what she did was brave, but of course she was already a part of the opposition. This is where I'm saying I don't believe that these Republicans who, voted for Trump and all this stuff, like, they're mad enough. Because in reality, what you heard from that man was mass deportations. Now, what you heard from that man,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
What you heard from that man was that he's going to end qualified immunity or whatever, whichever way it works. I forget, is it ended or keep it going?
They still hold on to hope. They still think that he's gonna. I'm sorry, you're white. Oh, I'm gonna get your job back. You got a fast track job back. That's what they're holding on to. They think, I messed up farmers. Oh, we're gonna bail you farmers out. We're not gonna let the private corporations take your farm. No, that's what they're holding on to, that hope, and that's why.
But this is the question. But this is the question though, because I've been asked this too, and I've actually seen this question posed, but I've been asked it too, is how do we bring these people in? How do we let them know that they've been lied to? And I'm like, I don't trust them as far as I could fucking see them. And I don't mean that like, I mean, to even organize politically. I told you how like locally our NAACP has my contemporary, the chair of the Republican Party there. You can't organize with your oppressor because these people still believe that black people should be killed by the police. These people still believe anybody that has a name like Sandoval or Lopez should be mass deported now. But they just didn't realize the plan for the white oligarch class was always to go through you first.
Yeah.
To go through y'all first. They got to go through y'all to get to us.
Well,
These SNAP benefits, WIC, y'all on them stamps. The thing is, but they didn't convince y'all that it was the black folks and the welfare queen and all this stuff. But y'all on them stamps.
Yeah,
It's y'all.
and I think and then we're waiting for their economic hardship. They'll feel the economic hardship, and then we can bring them in. And it's like, okay, well, one, if that's what you want to do, that's your thing. Like, go ahead, but don't tell other people who are trying to pull in people from the base and from the left that they're doing something wrong or that it's too radical. Because you're basically saying you're prioritizing this person, this racist person, or this prejudiced person who doesn't really like us. They voted against us. They intentionally, in a lot of ways,
right?
But because they are now feeling the pain of losing their benefits, their Medicaid, whatever it may be. Oh, now we should bring those people in. I'm not worried about that. I told you I was considering myself a moderate, but I told you like I've done both moved and then the whole everything's kind of moved. So but
right,
going
it was two things, right?
Yeah,
you went more left and they went more right, and you're like, no, I can't be. Moderation is insane during the time of Republican extremism.
But going into 2024 election, I was like, all right, yeah, like let's try to, and we bought in Cheney, like okay, like we're gonna win this thing, like I was feeling a little uncomfortable, but I'm like, I think we can do it. I think we can pull it off. She wants to be a war hawk and say we've got the most lethal force on the earth. Ooh, I don't know, but I want to run with it. And where did it get us? So why would we stick with that same strategy? Because it's a losing strategy. So I'm not sticking with that. I don't think that's the right answer. But so yeah, I don't trust these folks. And they might come to realize it, and then they'll still go and vote for Trump.
See,
for his third term.
this is why I don't give a shit about those people, and I mean that in the kindest way possible. But I mean like from a protectionist, from a black community protectionist perspective. Because yes, they may get fucked over by Donald Trump. They may get screwed over by Donald Trump, and they'll be like, I lost my benefits, and my mom had to get her leg cut off, and we didn't expect that. They put us in the poorhouse, and I lost my benefits and all this stuff and whatever. What would happen was this? What happened is this: Trump is he's running 2 terms. He's done. I mean, ostensibly, he may run for a 3rd term. I don't know, right? But I mean, they may try to. Well, he's a king now. Anyway. But this is what will happen, Ron. This is why I'm like, these people are not for real, and I don't think they're mad enough. They will blame Trump. And they'll say, yeah, I shouldn't have voted for him. I regret my vote. But let's say in 2028, JD Vance runs. They're going to say, but guess what? He won't do that. He won't hurt us the way Trump did. And you could have the most Barack Obama 2.0 out the plastic wrap, amazing young Jordan Lopez type of a representative that is now running for president. They were like, damn, this dude got it all figured out. He comes from the community. He can speak both to both sides of the fence about all that. And they will still vote for white supremacy. So the idea that I'm like, they're upset now because they're on the chopping block or they're feeling some of the heat. I don't believe that they are pro-democracy. I don't believe that they are for everybody having equal rights. And why should the oppressed and folks who have to deal with the brunt of that oppression have to coddle and center the emotions of those who are oppressors?
Yeah. And real quick, I don't think JD Vance has the power of the cult
or anybody, I don't know, whoever.
Well, they'll probably figure out a way to get Elon in there before they put in
JD. True that.
Vance he is a little more of the strategy behind the scenes than he is actually the front, the clown they wanted to performing for everyone. So I don't think he has the power to maintain the cult. But anyways, I digress.
But anybody, but like the next Republican, right?
Right,
Because they're all gonna
like
be racist.
Pence thought he was going to be able to, come in and
him and mother
be the next, and so and only half these people are going to get burned. Half his cabinet, they're going to have something.
I mean, they're already going through it where, Elon Musk is sending the email out to give me write down your 5 best friends and tell me before midnight. And then Kash Patel's like, no, please don't do that. Robert F. Kennedy's saying, no, don't. When you got Kash Patel and you got me saying, Kash Patel you got me, Payron Alexander Baxter saying Kash Patel is right to stop those folks from sending emails back to Elon Musk.
Yeah,
The infight is already beginning.
Right, and it's in some cases insecure. If somebody put in the wrong information and send it across to another organization, like I don't know what their infrastructure looks like, but if you're sending from outside the FBI to the Office of Professional Management, it's leaving the network. It's more insecure. So there's like it is a shit show. And again, I feel like they're trying to show why DEI is a thing because this is the most unqualified office I've ever seen.
Right.
And we just
I have 2 friends that I didn't even know work for the federal government. But that day, I got on Facebook that morning, and it was one of my middle school friends. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but we're how like you're just Facebook friends with somebody like, oh yeah, old boy from the old neighborhood. But he was like, I didn't think he was serious, but I'm up here writing this email to Elon Musk, SMH. And someone else was like, I just finished mine. And I went to school with both of them. And like, I mean, it is kind of like comical because like this is some idiocracy shit. But it's also like these are people that I know are not well off. They don't have some of the privileges that me and you have and the levity to be able to laugh this stuff off. But like imagine that terror. And this is this capitalistic mindset that folks like Jeff Bezos said that's how he runs Amazon, where he wants his employees to be terrified every single day when they come to work that they could be fired. This is what this crushing oppressive behavior that these 1%ers want because they get off on this shit.
Yeah,
like they get off on this.
There was a Republican on TV. I saw a clip, and he was speaking. He was like, this is going to motivate people to work longer hours. It's going to motivate them to wake up earlier, go to work early. It's going to motivate them to work harder. And it's great that they're scaring people. And I'm like, geez, man, geez. Like, what an effective company, and if a company is effective, and they always rail on remote work, but if a company is actually ran well, your managers are actually going to know who the good performers are, and then really they're going to get rid of bad performers right away, but they're going to have mechanisms in which they're looking at key performance indicators, KPIs, through whatever they're supposed to be doing. If you're doing remote work and you're knocking out these tasks or whatever, and those things, like that's how you actually manage somebody. You don't have to go in and micromanage people. And so I think that's the sign of an ineffective company or a company that isn't managed very well. And, and I think that's a choice that
efficiency.
Some of these owners make is like, they don't want to take the time to do that. They do need people in the office because they actually don't run an effective company. They want to run by the seat. What do they call it? The seat of their pant, whatever it's called. You know what I'm trying to say.
But what we're seeing though too, Ram, is this happened before here. 100 years ago. It was called the Gilded Age. It was the Industrial Revolution. And instead of big tech, it was steel, it was textiles, Andrew Carnegie, Rockefeller, all these people. But guess what they hated too, man? They hated people who wanted to take time off. This is when folks had to fight and they were stabbing their managers and killing their managers. And again, I'm not condoning this, but there was violence towards the managerial class and the wealth class who worked 7 days a week and still couldn't afford. This is during the time of the Dust Bowl. And guess what? Those same leaders, guess what they did? They sided with the fascists at the time, right? So this reverberates through history. History may not repeat, but it for damn sure rhymes. And if you don't know that, then folks will say, well, I can handle Elon Musk, or I can handle this, or I can go into the office. They didn't want people to have access to healthcare. They want to have people to have access to childcare. They wanted people to be terrified. They wanted people to be terrified of them. There is a narcissistic bent to this oligarch class, this wealth class. And I know it's easy to talk about class and try to separate race, but we can't forget that race is used to create that class system, specifically in this country. Right? They're like, hey, you still ain't them. You ain't them brown folks. You ain't them black folks. And that's what them folks in them town halls, they bet on that. And I saw this tweet going around, and I love it. It said,
unions.
they're against labor, exactly against labor unions, right? But I love this tweet I saw going around earlier this week. It said they had y'all focusing on trans people while they're robbing you blind and taking your grandma off of Medicare, and then it says you were looking at the wrong 1%. Trans folks are 1%. And I love that. They had you mad at the wrong 1%. And that's the reality. But the sad part is, and I've heard this too from folks, where they're like, oh, they've been led astray, they've been ran amok, hoodwinked, and as Malcolm X said. But I don't think that they were ultimately deceived and lied to. I think they've been conditioned to believe that black people are criminals. They've been conditioned to believe all immigrants are criminals. They've been conditioned to believe that trans people are grooming their children. They've been conditioned, so they actively believe that. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump played on that. What's the famous LBJ quote? If you convince the lowest white man that he's better than the highest black man, you can pick his pockets all day. Hell, you give him someone to look down on, he'll turn his pockets inside out for you. And that is what Donald Trump and Elon Musk had played on. And now we're supposed to sit here and be like, well, I guess they didn't know. Because again, we never get that courtesy. Like, oh, I guess they didn't know. They had to vote for Kamala Harris. They didn't know she was terrible. It's like, no, we know what it's like living under republicanism. And we know the outcomes. And like, you thought they were only going to hurt the Browns. You thought they were only going to hurt the blacks. You thought they were only going to hurt the immigrants, the gays, the women. And I don't have too much empathy for that. If they want to come around on their own time and vote differently, that's on them. That's on them.
Yeah. So, go shift gears again one more time. We got we're gonna try to wrap this up in a few minutes here.
One more story. What we got?
I have a story. I will say one more topic, a couple more action items, and maybe you can come up with a story as I go through these. But
or whatever. One more thing.
Indivisible. People trying to find something to do. Indivisible has been organizing. They're calling it what it is. Stop the Trump Musk coup. They are organizing in many chapters in the nation. So if you're looking for how you can get involved, they're organizing, protests and going into town halls, but they're also organizing, making calls and things like that. So it's a good organization. It's not, it's some people would, I guess, maybe even call it radical, but get involved. If you're looking for some ways to get involved with the community, I think that's a good place to start. The other thing is, and again, I don't necessarily think I don't think it beats the moment per se, but the Democrats are doing their precinct chairs and doing all that. I'm doing that, doing my precinct. I think that's the things that we do to get ready for the elections. But there's not a lot of urgency around what's happening right now, and that's okay because we don't know where this is going to go. But and it's still going to be important. And local politics, especially, are going, in my opinion, are going to be maybe the only thing left standing in terms of your local, your state, your city, your county, your state. So. And it might be all we have to fight. The federal government, it's not something we can rely on. So I recommend, that you do find the Democrats in your area and start to figure out how you can communicate, organize, and I know you've done that in the county. I'm excited to get it here. I think I can help ways to streamline it. It seems, using technology. So I'm excited to kind of figure those things out. But I just want people to figure out ways to get it. People say, how can I get involved? And the other thing I say is just look into history a little bit. Understand, try to research what fascism is, and watch a 15-minute video or something. Understand what happened in Hungary with Urban, and that Trump has said he likes his playbook, and Trump's using that playbook. Look at what happened in Nazi Germany and what led up to that. The best thing we can know at this point is history, and that's why I love talking to you, because you enlighten me often on a lot of these things. But you can't fight something when you don't understand what you're fighting, right?
Right.
And history has shown us, and they always say, well, history repeats itself, and if you let it, and that's why people don't just say that just to say it, right? Like, so
I think what Trump offers people and Republicans offer people is freedom from being free. What I mean by that is um, when you don't have to think any differently about yourself, if you don't have to think any differently about what this world might look like, and that you just have to just kind of accept it, and you can go along with the stream, and you don't have to paddle against it. You don't have to apply any critical thought or any critical intelligentsia to your. Again, I always go back to our material conditions because, and I meant to ask Rep Lopez this, but the idea of like, it's great, in theory, because he said he's done a lot of stuff, or he's got a master's degree in public policy, and he has some actual experience. So I'm not knocking it, but just, Fred Hampton said, a theory ain't shit without praxis. You know what I mean? So like, basically what that means is like, reading books about this stuff, but like if you're not doing this stuff real time, that's where the rubber meets the road. Because you can say, well, we should have an egalitarian system, and these are the checks and balances, and that's the Democrats are fantastic on that. They will talk about this is what the Constitution says, this is what the law is, but in reality, Republicans are about praxis via power. And what is power? Power is the ability to create reality and to get others to be able to and to get others to believe it. That's what power is. Power is the ability to create a reality and to get others to believe the shit you just said. And that's what they do. And if we're not trying to dismantle that or deconstruct that, we are just holding on to status quo. In fact, me and my wife got into a slight tiff about this specifically about maybe a couple weeks ago, where we were talking about she was like, well, you could be progressive, or you could be like,
careful now, she's
the
watching.
right. I know, or you could be like the right, or you could be in the middle. And I was like, there is no middle. I said, because the thing is, the status quo itself is specifically for the other side, because because what oppression is holding on to pain, right? So if you got stabbed in the stomach and you said, I need to go to the ER right now, but if I'm like, hold on to that pain, Ron, until this next election, or hold on until tomorrow, and I promise I will take care of that knife wound. I promise you. And you're like, I have to go right now. So that's what that moderating force is when folks are actively under the boot of an oppressive system. And I really want people to expand their mind to understand that all of us, I don't care how much money you make, how much your portfolio is, whatever the case may be, you're closer to being homeless than you ever will be to Elon Musk. Like, you're way closer to being a homeless person. So you should care about the rights of the unhoused. You should care about the rights of the poor. You should care about the rights of your fellow citizens. As again, what happens in these moments is these rights get pulled back, we get retrenched, and we go back into a hierarchical state, then a more nativist state, a nationalistic state. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing, Trump, he just invited, or flew old boy in, Andrew Tate and his brother, right? We're seeing this dismantling of what we thought were norms, to the point where I'm even agreeing with Ron DeSantis now. So those two people, Kash Patel and Ron DeSantis, where Ron DeSantis like, I don't want these people here in Florida, but he ain't gonna do shit about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear him say that too.
So it's just like, we have to be clear-eyed about it, because a lot of us want to stick to like, this is the law, this is the Bill of Rights. It's like, these folks are exercising fascist power.
They said they're ignoring the Constitution. They're ignoring
Yeah.
the court rulings, and from what I've seen, and I don't think there's enough publicity on this, but from what I'm understanding is that they are still actively ignoring judges' orders. They're not resuming payments. They're not halting on firings. So there's a lot of good reason for people to be like, what are you talking about in 2026? Like, And we're gonna they're gonna feel the pain, but yeah, they're gonna feel the pain. But guess what? There's a lot of people who didn't vote for this that do not deserve to feel the pain.
The majority of people
who actually might die because they aren't able to get their their insulin, or might not be able to get their medicine because they lost
or food.
And so it's not. If you say that we can wait till 2026, you're saying that at a place of privilege. And that privilege that a lot of people don't have, the most vulnerable people in this country do not have. And so I find it very disrespectful to those people, and just thinking that they're all MAGA and they all have to feel the pain. Yeah, you know what? I want those people to feel the pain, but at the same time, like doesn't mean that we should just let it happen and just write off everyone else who didn't want this, or even the people that did it. Like there's a lot of people that don't vote in this country.
90 million.
But because they don't actually think the government does anything for them. These are the people that we talk
about. We don't know that. We don't know what they all think.
Not all of them.
You can't make that wide swath on 90 million people.
Of course, not all of them. I'm talking about, but there's a lot of people who I've talked to that say, like, well, what does the government do for me? And this is what we talk about. Like, I think that there's, my personal opinion is that there's a better strategy and I know that people will say otherwise, but a better strategy in trying to get new voters by but you also have to like understand what they're saying and talk to them and represent them. That's the other part that you have to actually work for. Then to actually try to keep swaying this small percentage,
this narrow, right.
You can keep doing that, but where's that getting? Like, I don't think that's
it got us right here.
We need, because you're talking about 33% of the people that don't vote, versus these 5% of the people that sway back and forth. So, I digress, but. And
last thing I'm gonna say on that, I know we're over time, but is that people need to understand. I mean, I think we said this with Dr. Hardy. The conversation about the 90 million, even, and I'm going to just I'll end them with this, is that we really need to, us who are politically plugged in, we need to reshift our focus instead of saying those people don't vote because of X. We are prescribing what these people are saying. We do not know that, and I'm not discounting what you're saying. I think I've heard that from people too. But what I'm saying is I can't say that the 90 million who are of voting age and they did not vote in this past election all did that because the government, they think the government doesn't work. But it's important, like what I said with Dr. Hardy, instead of saying you don't vote because you're lazy, or you don't vote because you are uninformed, or you don't vote because blah, blah, we should be asking, the question should not be you didn't vote. It should be, what's stopping you from voting?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm telling you, man, it'll change the way you interact with people. It'll change your conversation. It'll change the way you're looking at politics. Because if I'm not voting because of a structural reason, I'm not voting because I'm working too much, and like, again, another structural reason, because my labor is being exploited, my rent is being exploited on me, or I have a health condition where I can't get to the polling place, or I don't have access to information because there's a paywall. You're starting to understand the internecine obstacles that are put in front of, especially the most vulnerable people, and we can't forget that the majority of folks that vote are poor, they're impoverished. So if we are talking about classism, if we are talking about folks who don't have access, it's because of these things. And I just want us to really humble and humble ourselves when we're going to these conversations to say, okay, what's stopping you from voting?
Just stopping you from voting,
because it'll just change the way that we interact with people, and it'll be more sincere. Because if the other one is, oh, you don't vote, why didn't you vote? That's very accusatory. You're finger wagging. You're blaming them for these fucking conditions that they did not create. It's like
it is perspective. And a lot of people say that out of a place of privilege too, right? And so, and like I said, you can't say for all 90 million. Granted, there's the people that if they gave me the reason, I'd be like, I'll feel the pain too. Then, so Anyways, this was a great episode.
Always good.
Who do we have on Sunday?
We have Brandon Rivers. He actually worked for the Biden campaign near the end, but he is an organizer. He did You Can Vote, so he's a young brother. He really speaks the language of the culture, but he also is so knowledgeable as it relates to the processes of voter registration and what we need to do to get folks to be able to register to vote and make their voices heard and actually activate and exercise their power. He came to the Union County Democratic Party's Black History Month event last February, so it'll be a year pretty much a year and a couple of days when we see him. But it was a great conversation, and we really had an honest conversation in front of people that did not look like us. I think there's only like 2 Black people in the audience, and we were actively talking about our experiences, what it's like voting, what it's like being in this political system, what it's like being talked to and not talked with, all those things. And I think you'll really enjoy that conversation. But he one of us, you know what I mean? So it'd be good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, thank you, everyone. If you're still watching and listening, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate the folks that are watching. Appreciate the people who watch the replays. And
love y'all.
Yeah, we will see y'all on Sunday, and have a great rest of your week. And do not shop tomorrow.
Do not.
And just do not Target at all. Just not until... I don't know.
Ever. I don't know. I mean, for real, like, it's got to be like some world. Yes. Like, you know what? It's now called Black Lives Matter. That's the name of the store.
And the CEO, the whole board is Black and brown.
It's all Black.
LGBT.
That's right.
Full
That's
representation.
Right. There are no white people here no more.
Yeah,
we have no more white people.
That's the demands. There are some good demands out there, but anyways, I digress. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Have a good night.